And we're joined now by the Conservative MP Heidi Allen and Labour's Shadow Minister for Industrial Strategy, Chi Onwurah. Heidi, I'll begin with you, if I may. You have to cheer your man to the rafters tomorrow. That's how it works. You're not the Labour Party. But what will make your cheer most sincere? What are you really hoping to see?
Well, I think we're getting some big clues already about what we're likely to hear tomorrow, and what I'm hearing is good. You'll know, I'm sure, I've been campaigning hard to reverse some of the damage that was done to the universal credit system in the budget last year. What I'm hearing is £1 billion putting into reducing the harshness of the taper rates. It's not everything we asked for, but given the fiscal climate and the fact that I've also heard we're going to lift the national minimum wage also, and those tax thresholds are continuing to rise.
You say it's not what you're campaigning for. Damien Green suggested on this programme not long ago that £2 billion was the figure that would make a meaningful difference.
Yeah, and that
so we're going to have half a meaningful difference.
That's the right. The £2 billion would have reversed fully all the changes that were put into the work allowances. You can either change the work allowances or you can change the taper rate. So that does go some way. Not as much as I would have liked. I can't pretend that it is. But I think given the economic situation we're still in with the deficit and the debt, you know, we have to be a little bit realistic. But if they're bumping up the national minimum wage from $7.20 to $7.50, I've heard as well going to ban letting agent fees for people renting in the private market.
Just focus for the time being on the bigger economic picture. I understand why you're excited by that. Your maiden speech, of course, was dedicated to a call for all these cuts to universal credit to be curtailed, to be called off entirely. And I think you wrote recently that people came up to you afterwards and questioned why you were a Conservative.
They've done that ever since.
Why do you think they've done that? Why don't they see Conservatives as hoping to help the poorest in society?
I think it's an old-fashioned view, perhaps, of where the Tory party people have felt it was. It is changing. If I thought it was going to continue in that way, I wouldn't have joined. I would have stood for a different party. But I am feeling that new broom. Theresa is most definitely pushing that broom. I just wish we could find a better description than jams, because I really don't like that.
Do you know what a jam is?
Well, I put it on my bread. But
seriously, though.
I think everybody's definition...
Is there a threshold? I mean, do you get handed a crib sheet? Do you know what the income level is? Is it geographically specific?
I know what it means to me.
Go on.
It means to me the people that used to work with me when I worked at Royal Mail, who just about every day, every week, make ends meet. It's money hand to mouth. It's choosing whether they can put the heating on or whether they can put shopping in their trolley. It's really basic stuff, and they are the people I'm fighting for, and a lot of us are, across the whole House.
So yes. It's the squeezed middle?
I'd say it's even less than the middle, actually. It's people even that are more vulnerable than that and have very, very low incomes.
Is it just me, or are we, Alan? I mean, that is the most busted of busted flushes, isn't it? I mean, the whole idea was that the deficit was absolutely crucial. Driving down the debt was the driving force of the entire project. 6 years in number 11 Downing Street, and now his predecessor has given up on it. What do you say to the people you care so much about who have had wage freezes because austerity was the answer to the deficit, who perhaps have lost their jobs in the public sector because austerity was the answer to the deficit, people who have genuinely been squeezed or jammed or whatever you want to call them as a direct result of the policies that your party enacted?
Well, I don't know if it's fair to say it's just because of the policies that were enacted. Yes.
George Osborne said himself that when deficits are high, it's the poorest that suffer most. And now Philip Hammond is saying the deficit reduction can't be our top priority. So you just knit those two together and you're telling the poor that they're due to suffer more.
No, not at all. I think whilst I prefer a relaxation, that we're not going to aim for surplus this Parliament, as was the strategy under Osborne, I think it's right that we just release the pressure just a little bit, because it was becoming unbearable. And yes, I believe that under the previous administration, it was all about the debt and the deficit, to the cost almost of anything else. And that was what I really struggled with. It was so one-dimensional. So it is right that we release that. But it's not just any policies that George Osborne came up. You know, this has been a very, very difficult period across the world, not just for our country. And it's flipping turbulent. My worry with Brexit is it's going to get even more turbulent, which is why I'm pleased we can get a bit of extra cash into these people's pockets to help them ride that.
If we look back at that comment of George Osborne's about high deficits hitting the poorest hardest, I think you are, aren't you, suggesting that your colleagues who campaigned for Brexit, who advocated it, have actually caused the poor now, at least in the short term, to suffer more than they would have done otherwise?
Well, I'm hoping absolutely not. You know, Britain is...
What are you thinking?
I know what I'm fearing, but Britain is a very resilient country. I suspect, you know, we're all adjusting. My constituencies very, very highly wanted to remain, But, you know, we have to accept the decision. And I know it's a tired old phrase, but we will make the best of it. That's what British people do. You know, the Prime Minister was in my constituency on Monday morning at one of my scientific organisations announcing £2 billion going into R&D and science funding this Parliament. That's the kind of stuff. You know, we have the brains and ingenuity, and that translates into jobs. So it's right that we put money in there. It's just like all these things. There isn't enough money to go around, and it's finding that balance. And I think they've pretty much got it.
Heidi Allen, Onward, thank you very much indeed for your time this evening. Now,